In today's video, we're going to explore how to block access to specific domains from your Compute Engine VM. This is part of a larger ability to control traffic from your Compute Engine instances based on certain patterns. Our goal is to route all traffic through an HTTP proxy and then perform Secure Web Proxy rule-based filtering on that traffic. To make sure all traffic goes through our proxy, we'll use a private VM and Cloud NAT. Cloud NAT allows outbound access to the internet from our Compute Engine VMs, even when they're private. We'll be focusing on the Network Security Suite from Google Cloud Platform. This suite will work together with our NAT system to manage our traffic. It's important to note that this setup depends on having a cloud router that works with the NAT to direct our traffic effectively. While we'll keep the tutorial simpler by focusing on a pure HTTP proxy approach, we'll mention some of the considerations if you're TLS securing the traffic between your VMs and the proxy via an HTTPS approach. Let's start by going to VPC Networks in our new project and creating a new VPC. If you haven't already, you'll need to enable the Compute Engine API first. The VPC network we create will work alongside the default one that's automatically created with new projects, unless you've changed your organization policy. We'll choose a custom subnet creation approach, selecting a specific region and a CIDR range. For now, we'll use the recommended option. Don't worry about the default firewall rules yet, we'll set those up later. After creating our VPC and subnet, we'll set up a test VM within this subnet. It's crucial that this VM remains private without a public IP address. When creating the VM instance, most default settings are fine, but we need to change the networking section. We'll use our newly created demonstration network and the US Central Subnet. Make sure to turn off the external IP address so that traffic will route through Cloud NAT. This prevents direct access to the internet, giving us the opportunity to inspect and control traffic. It's important to keep our resources in the same location, so we'll use US Central for our VM, Cloud NAT, and Cloud Router. While it's possible to use a multi-regional approach, we'll keep things simple for this demonstration. After creating the VM, you'll notice it doesn't have an external IP address. This means we can't directly SSH into the instance. For example, if we try the SSH in browser feature, it will hang indefinitely because there's no network path to access the container. To solve this, we'll set up access using Identity-Aware Proxy. This proxy allows us to access private VMs and can be configured to work over SSH port 22. This setup will enable us and our colleagues to access the VM for testing purposes, particularly for testing website access from the Compute Engine instance. Setting up Identity-Aware Proxy access is straightforward. We need to find the IP range used by Identity-Aware Proxy and create a firewall rule for it. Once we have the IP range, we'll create a new firewall rule to allow SSH access. Make sure to select the correct network, not the default VPC, and allow SSH traffic to all instances in the network. We'll use the IP range we found as the source and allow port 22 with the TCP protocol. After setting up the firewall rule, we need to wait a moment for it to take effect. Soon, we should be able to SSH into our instance using the SSH in Browser feature. This feature uses our Google accounts to verify our access to the VM. While you could use an SSH command line interface, the browser feature is convenient for testing. Keep in mind that at this point, if we try to access any web page from our VM, it won't work. This is because we haven't set up any public access and the instance doesn't have an external IP to communicate with the internet. This is intentional, as we want to use an HTTP proxy to control our traffic. Next, let's set up Cloud NAT, or Network Address Translation. We'll need to create a Cloud NAT gateway, which requires a router. The NAT will act as our public interface, sitting between our Compute Engine VM and the internet. Creating a new router is simple. We can use the default settings. Once our network address translation is running, it will use all the subnets in our demonstration VPC. After this step, we should be able to access Google from our SSH in browser session. Our next goal is to block access to certain domains. For example, we might want to allow access only to our own domain, like softwaresim.com, while blocking access to google.com. To achieve this, we'll use the Secure Web Proxy feature of the Network Security Suite. Let's create a policy in the Secure Web Proxy system. The TLS inspection policy can help us deal with encrypted traffic, but for now, we'll focus on setting up a basic Secure Web Proxy rule. By default, this system blocks all access, so we need to grant access and then fine-tune it as needed. When creating our rule, we can use the provided syntax examples. For instance, we can match a single web address. We'll skip the TLS inspection for now and add our rule to the policy, but note that the inspection policy is used for HTTPS setups. After creating the policy, we need to set up a Secure Web Proxy. This process requires a proxy-only subnet in our VPC. This subnet will provide the internal IP address that our VM will use to access the proxy. To set up the proxy-only subnet, go to the VPC networks in your demonstration VPC and look for the proxy-only subnet section. Enable it, making sure to use the same region, US Central, as our other resources. Choose the Regional Managed Proxy option and set up an IP range. Once the proxy-only subnet is ready, return to the Secure Web Proxy page to complete the setup. You'll need to provide an address for the web proxy and specify which ports to use, typically 80 and 443. We'll skip the certificate section for now, but make sure to associate your newly created policy. If you're encrypting between the VM and web proxy, a certificate would need to be provided. Now it's time to test our setup. We'll need to configure the HTTP proxy in the /etc environment file. We'll set it up to use our proxy for all traffic. Note, however, that we'll need to restart the VM to actually enforce the proxying. So let's test our setup using the curl command. It looks like this won't work because we haven't set up the encrypted side of things to use an HTTPS protocol and port 443 proxy. We'll need to adjust our proxy settings to use HTTP on port 80 instead. Note, however, that we can still access HTTPS websites, but the encryption will only be between the proxy and the remote web server. After restarting the VM, let's try our tests again. If everything is set up correctly, we should see an access denied message when trying to access google.com through our proxy. This is exactly what we want. It shows that our proxy is working and blocking access to traffic that doesn't match out allow patterns. On the other hand, if we try to access our allowed domain, it should work perfectly fine. We should even be able to access subpages on this allowed domain. As usual, we'll provide the diagram file in the video description for your reference, reuse, and revision. If you'd like to support the channel, start a trial of our new design tool, linked in the video description, and let us know what you think. Thanks so much for watching until the end, and please enjoy responsibly.